Many animals have become habituated to the presence of humans in urban areas. Due to the increasing populations of humans, animals have been forced to adapt in order to survive the ever-changing conditions. In this experiment, we looked at bird assemblages in both urban and rural areas and the level of habituation they have adapted to humans. Adaptation is seen in bird flight initiation distance. That is, the distance of how close a predator can get to a bird or an assemblage of birds before the bird takes off in flight. Domesticated dogs are common pets in both urban and rural environments. As such, they must be walked daily and their habitats may overlap with that of urban and rural bird assemblages. In this experiment, domesticated dogs were also used as a potential predator of both urban and rural bird assemblages. There is a research gap of the effects of domesticated dogs on the behaviour of urban and rural bird assemblages. By looking into this gap of knowledge, scientists can understand the behavioural relationship between domesticated dogs and bird assemblages, as compared to bird relationships with humans. This study will investigate the behaviour of feeding birds when approached by a person versus when they are approached by a person with a dog. Understanding the behaviour of birds in different environments is important when conserving and protecting species. It is hypothesized that urban birds will have a later flight initiation than rural birds when being approached by a person and a person with a dog. The observation of animal behaviour is commonly studied in alignment with Tim Burgeon's 4 questions, separated into 2 categories, proximate and alternate. The 4 major explanations of animal behaviour are mechanism, ontology, adaptive value, and phylogeny. In this study, the most prominent explanation that will be used is ontology. Ontology is the observation of an animal behaviour's development over their lifetime. This development can be innate or environmentally influenced in this case. It is hypothesized that the development will be environmentally influenced, hence the comparison between rural and urban areas. First, 3 markers were placed at 5-metre intervals in the chosen location, that being either urban or rural. Then, 5 metres away from the last marker, a pile of bird seeds was scattered on the ground. We waited until the birds arrived to eat the bird seeds.
Once they had settled, we walked towards the birds at an even pace, noting the distance between us and the birds and when they were startled and took flight. We repeated this procedure 2 more times in the same area.
24 hours after the initial recordings, we repeated the experiment whilst walking a dog on a lead. Again, we recorded how far away we were from the birds when they initiated their flight and repeated this 2 more times in the area. The average flight initiation distance between a bird assemblage and a human approaching without a dog was shorter in urban locations in comparison to rural locations by 4.2 metres. However, using ANOVA concluded that the difference of means between locations for this treatment was non-significant. Similarly, when testing the average flight initiation distance of birds triggered by a human approaching with a dog urban birds had a shorter initiation distance than rural by 7.9 meters. This result had a significant difference between means when tested through ANOVA. Overall, bird assemblages had a shorter flight initiation distance when a human approached as opposed to when they were approached by a human and a dog. Furthermore, urban birds had a shorter flight initiation distance than rural birds. The results from approaching bird assemblages varied significantly from urban to rural. Our results weren't consistent with other studies in that urban birds didn't respond as quickly during the experiment compared to their rural counterparts. Within the urban locations, humans alone and humans with dogs were able to get closer to the bird assemblages, inactive of them being more comfortable and more adapted to humans. Lower fears towards potential predators within urban populations of animals has been documented before. Although many urban birds noticed the observer approaching, they often did not take flight until within a few meters of the person. On the other hand, the rural birds flew away before the observer could get within 10 meters of them. Urban birds may need to learn to be bolder towards predators as they have a consistent higher predation risk compared to rural birds. Despite all of this, urban birds may become habituated towards natural predators as they do towards human in urban environments. Rural birds treat humans as a threat and seem to consider them as a natural predator, whereas urban birds have learned to ignore humans majority of the time. Future studies testing rural birds to survive in an urban habitat could help bring insight to see if the birds could modify their behaviour to survive in contrasting locations. As urbanization continues to occur, we suspect that the habituation of birds will continue to grow, possibly having a stronger effect on local species than today. In conclusion, we hypothesized that urban birds would have a later flight initiation than rural birds when being approached by a person and a person with a dog. Through our study, we accept the hypothesis as we observed that urban bird assemblages were more adapted towards humans and were also more confident towards natural predators, therefore having a later flight initiation. This reaction is most likely due to habituation of urban areas.